I played Elden Ring's Ultimate Randomizer and it almost broke me. Enemies, random. Objects, random. Doors and fog gates, also random. Wanna fight Malenius, the tutorial boss? Or search for the freaking Glintstone Academia key for 5 hours? This is your mod. Let's get into it. Alright, so we're in the Chapel of Anticipation and our path as a Tarnished in the Lands Between begins. To beat this challenge I need the following. Acquiring 2 Great Runes, burning the Erdtree at the Forge of the Giants, finding Maliketh and stealing Destined Death, finding the entrance of the Erdtree, and finally beating the final boss inside. And buckle up, because we've arrived to our first fog gate, and with that, the randomizer officially begins. And we are in Farum, Azula. The latest area in a regular run has now been reconverted in the first area of the game. I made my first steps in the randomizer with the joy of a kid running around in a toy store. But before that, how cool is this as a starting class? The double Nox flowing swords are just gorgeous, and they will give us a good lead. Holy shit, that's so awesome. Not much time passes until I get to the first fog gate, blocking my way to the Dragon Temple lift. So I decide to dive in, and I appear in Leyndell, the capital, the Mistborn version of it. Alright, so now I'm in another huge late game area where there is not that much to do actually. I wander around, grab some objects, find some lost graces, and then I make my way to the Queen's bedchamber where, of course, there is another fog gate. We are going to warp a lot around the lands between, aren't we? Right there I didn't know it, but I had chosen the dark side and I was walking through a dangerous path. As I arrived to the underground sewers of the capital, I soon realized that things were about to get rough. Maybe I would even have to face
a loathsome dung-eater.
Without knowing the depths of the danger I was about to put myself in, I explored the sewers, finding a lot of somber smithing stones, which will be very useful later on, and I also fought a lot of tough enemies. I got lost quite frequently, got absolutely destroyed by a couple of bears, as if I was Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, which I understand why they gave him the Oscar, but come on, it was clear that it was a compensation for the real award-winning performance that was The Wolf of Wall Street. I think I'm getting off the track. Where was I? Oh yeah, cool objects, getting lost in the dark, and getting brutally murdered by 2 bears. I also learned in this underground nightmare that mini-dungeons were not mandatory, and they would only warp between themselves. So that reduced the potentially required gates from 300 to just 118. Cool! After quite some time getting killed in the dark depths of the sewers, I decided to try my luck elsewhere, and so I went back to Farum, Azula. But then I ditched the Crumbling lands to return to Ashen Leyndell and see where I could go from the Colosseum entrance. That led me to the Stormveil Castle Divine Tower, which in turn led me to the Scylla Cave, which in turn led me to the Adlus Plateau, and just like that I got to my first open area of Elden Ring. It was on Limgrave, Liurnia or Caelid, which I would have loved, but nevertheless this was a huge success. I also got to visit the Round Table Hold, and there I talked to the gang and saw all their curious outfits, but there was no time to waste, so I returned to the Adlus Plateau to be burned to death by a late game dragon, and then I fought the leader of the Black Knife Assassins. I tried to avenge Goldwyn the Golden, he the first who fell, but I instead ended up joining him. I am sorry buddy, I tried. Well, that didn't work, so I rode with Torrent to the gates of Leyndell, which is quite weird considering I just came from there. But well, that's the ultimate randomizer for you. I had some trouble fighting a double Erdtree avatar, and I thought I could cheese it, until I found out I needed to defeat both of them or they would simply respawn.
Hello there.
On the gates of Leyndell there was yet another Erdtree avatar, and this was my time for redemption. I talked with the boys, I always love a good talk with boys. And then I went on with my journey, and that journey brought me to the Flame Peak. This was my first proper boss fight, and I was so delighted to find them. So how did it go? Well, the Valiant Gargoyle just tore me apart and told me to come try again in 50 years from now. And I decided to follow their advice because, honestly, my damage output was absolute trash. I needed to gear up. I needed to find some place like Limgrave full of the good, easy stuff. I decided to travel across the Alus Plateau and visit Dominula, because it reminds me of Castilla-La Mancha. I fought a mini-boss there and switched to what would rapidly become the weapon of the run, Eleonora's Poleblade. I've been leveling up all this time using big runes that I found here and elsewhere, and now I finally could use it. Oh, I love it. I love it. I already love it. After my visit at Dominula, I tried to reach the Shaded Castle, as there is a fog gate there, but that didn't go so well. Then I went to the Subterranean Shunning-Grounds, and that went less well. And then I went to the Valiant Gargoyle boss fight, and that went terribly wrong. I decided to give it a go at the Shaded Castle again, as things were starting to become frustrating, and after a lot of effort, I found the fog gate. I traversed the green mist, and soon discovered that it led to a dead end. The first of so many that you can even not imagine. I was feeling a little bit of a burnout, so I went to a trip to Venice with my girlfriend. Really cool city. I love Italia and all of you Italian folks. But anyways, before landing back in my home country, the flight attendants told me we were diverting our flight course to land instead in Farum, Azula, which is where I ended up instead. I realized I hadn't explored all that I could have explored in Maliketh's summer vacation residence, so I gathered some interesting objects along the way and knocked on the Black Blade's door. He wasn't there though, so I was redirected to the Forbidden Lands, and there I defeated a Dragon King soldier that was freezing to death, the poor little guy. I tried to return to the capital, but there was yet another fog gate, and that one brought me to the actual man, Maliketh. Well, not Maliketh, but the Beast Clergyman, which is his stage name. It was a beautiful fight against one of the main guys of Elden Ring. I didn't get a Great Rune or Destined Death, but a Sacred Tear was a good consolation prize. Margit's Arena led me to the Runestorm Precipice, which is located in Liurnia. Finally, I wanted to reach either Limgrave or Liurnia since the start of the playthrough, and finally it was at the grasp of my fingers. I made my way down, and when I emerged from the last cave, I found out a terrible truth. There was a fog gate there, which led to the deep Ainsel well. Alright, that's not bad, that's not bad. If I go down, surely I can keep advancing. Another dead end, okay. Until I follow Ranni's quest. Cool. Very cool, yeah, cool. Cool. I decided to reevaluate my priorities, and I decided to give the Valiant Gargoyle a serious try. It couldn't be that bad, right? With my new and upgraded weapon, this wouldn't be as nightmarish as I thought, right? Well, as Tony Montana once said,
Say hello to my little friend!
this was the double gargoyle fight. I was screwed. The smartest thing would have been to go anywhere else, but I was hard-headed. This was my destined battle. I had to win. But before, I failed, and I failed, and I failed, and I failed some more, until finally, after more than an hour and a half of fighting these goddamn gargoyles, I managed to pull it off. Oh wait, no, there's a second phase. Oh no. Oh no. What? No fucking way. I was crushed. I tried another 30 minutes to get through the gargoyles, but knowing that the fucking final boss awaited me after it was just too much. So I yet again decided to save this fight for later and ditch. So after that horrible experience, I decided to change my outfit. New outfit, new me, baby. And so as I was pretty much stuck, I decided to get back to Farum Azula, because I realized I hadn't explored all that I could have explored in the Dragon's Nest hometown. I went to the secret Placidux arena, and that led me to the beginning of Farum Azula, which, you know, it kind of fits. I advanced as per usual, and here I committed a fatal mistake. What you see over there is the Dragon Temple, home of the Godskin duo, which houses none other than 3 fog gates. You see it? Cool, because I will not during the next several hours. I ended up in a fog gate, however, and I really, really hoped I could get to an early game area such as Linggrave. So obviously, I traversed Mikela's favorite place, watching out to not face his blade, and arrived at Loretta's arena, which actually brought me to the Weeping Peninsula. That's so cool! Finally, an early game area. Too bad it's actually a dead end. I returned to the Helix Tree and I wondered if the run was just not doable. While I was at it, I found the Crimson Medallion and a Larval Tear. That will surely be convenient when I get to Respec, which I guess it has to be soon, right? Seeing there was no escape, I went to face the duo of Gargoyles and the Elden Beast head-on. And once again, I died and I died and I died in a never-ending nightmare of a fight until I almost got it at some point, but then I couldn't even get close again. If I have to be honest, I considered scrapping this video and moving on to something else. But there's just something to these games, man. Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, Elden Ring. Miyazaki has made astonishing and beautiful worlds that just feel so alive, so daring, so mysterious that how could I let it all crumble when I faced the slightest inconvenience? I needed to get good. I needed to summon my courage. Or I need to find out that you can cheese the gargoyles by using the enormous fire giant arena. That could also work. Anyways, I'll take my chance to say that the Elden Beast fight feels so good on torrent. Oh my god, From Software, it is so clear that you made this to be done with your Phantom Horse, but chicken out at the last second, you cowards. Come on, come on! Yes! Oh my god, we did it! Oh my god! That was so hard. Holy. Alright. After slaying God, just like in your typical JRPG story about a group of Japanese teens, I went up to the Forge of the Giants and I burnt up the Earth Tree, committing a cardinal sin and opposing the Golden Order. But I have already slayed God, so you know what, who cares? I am sure that nothing will go wrong and I will soon complete the other objectives. Just you wait.
Oh shit, here we go again.
After leaving the Academy of Raya Lucaria, our quest to become Elden Lord of the Lands Between was yet in another dead end, so I returned to Farum Azula as I realized I hadn't explored all that I could have explored in the pilgrimage destination of the Godskin duo. And whoa, let me stop you right there. Last time we were burning the Earth Tree, what has happened? That's a good observation. Well, during one of my recording sessions, my city decided it would be fun to leave half of my building without electricity with intermittent cuts, so I lost almost 2 hours of footage. Here you have a dumb and tiresome edit made by Weskis of what happened during that lost gameplay. I basically explored yet again the Leyndell sewers for an insufferable amount of time until I reached the end, which led me to Mogwin's temple where Godric the Grafted awaited me. I defeated him swiftly and moved on to the Academy of Raya Lucaria, which served for very little as it was full of dead ends. However, one fog gate led to the other side of the Flame Peak, and so we are now free to explore yet another late game area. Man, are we going to reach Linggrave someday? Who knows? On my winter vacation at the mountain tops of the Giants, I came across an old castle and decided to pay a visit since I wanted to loot the place and search for goodies. However, something very awkward happened, as I found there Eleonora, the true owner of the blade I carry. We had a friendly exchange several times, until I decided it was enough and kept exploring. I killed Preceptor Miriam, who is an absolute asshole in the base game, so he had it coming, and I reached an area where random enemies fell off the sky and gave me roughly 20k runes for doing nothing. So the next step was kind of obvious. I went to Castle Sol and decided that after my rough visit on the last castle, this one surely had to pay the price of my anger. I murdered everything that dare oppose me, but my efforts were meaningless, as I had reached yet another dead end in my quest to become Elden Lord. However, I found something very useful, a grace close enough to the falling enemies that gave me 20k runes. So this was huge. It meant that I had a free XP farm if I ever needed one. With that information, and maybe almost a million runes that I farmed by vigorously sitting up on a grace repeatedly, I wandered in the lands between without a clear route in my mind. Basically, I was stuck. This situation lasted for quite some time after I realized that a while ago I got some items related to Ranni's quest. So maybe, just maybe... Oh yeah! I fought the Dragon King Soldier, Cosmic Horror Edition, and I arrived at Leyndell, the soon-to-be Ashes capital. Spent my time in the capital visiting the historical landmarks, trying the local cuisine, meeting the amicable citizens, and looting the place like I was about to become the Pirate King. I visited the not-so-magic version of the Round Table Hold, and when I got bored of that, I went up to the vines and reached the next fog gate. I was very surprised to land in Caelid, right next to Radahn's arena. Unfortunately, you need to warp through a small gate to get to the actual arena, and those may be randomized too, so I don't think we're making it. Oh? Well, I guess this is my lucky day. Ah! The festival has begun. I summon thee, warriors in search of the glory, to commemorate the battle that brought Caelid to its knees. Come on!
For Frodo.
Charge!
This is why this randomizer is so cool. We're fighting Malenia here, just like in the story trailer with the boys. Good times, good times. But let's focus on the important stuff. Yeah, I was very lucky, as having the toughest boss beyond the festival grounds allowed me to summon the boys and tell her what's what. That was, at least, the first phase. The second phase, however, obliterated all my allies within the span of a second, and then I was on my own, battling desperately against the goddess of rot. And you already know how that went. It was a fierce battle, but finally, after many tries, I managed to bring down the blade of Miquella, and look at that, I got Radahn's Great Rune. Now that is a good reward, as I only need another one to complete the game. Also, I noticed the stars began to move, but surely this is not important. Back in regular Leyndell, I went to the entrance fog gate as I hadn't checked it yet, and I appeared at the Mimic tier boss arena, but there was a noble beast awaiting me instead. I came from being victorious against Malenia, so you can bet I defeated the beast without breaking a sweat. And to my surprise, I was rewarded with Rykard's Great Rune. So that's it! If I defeated whoever is in Maliketh's arena in Farum, Azula, and I found the entrance to the Erdtree, then I was done. At this point, I imagined it would be funny to beat the game without ever stepping in Limgrave or Liurnia, as my playtime clocked in at 12 hours and 30 minutes and I still hadn't seen neither of them. And speaking about that, hey! These videos take a lot of effort and a lot of time, and you clearly like them since you've made it so far. So how about hitting the subscribe button? Don't feel guilty. I know the main reason you haven't done it yet is because this is just some background noise to have while doing other stuff. Do not worry. I'll wait for you to come pick up your phone and subscribe. Where were we? Oh yeah, defeating Malenia, getting the first Great Rune, defeating the Ancestor Spirit, getting the second Great Rune. Well, a new fog gate had opened up, so I obviously dived in to see where it would bring me, and... well, how lucky can one person be? I found it! Right after 2 Great Runes! It was Maliketh's arena, and good old General Radahn was in it. Our battle would be...
legendary.
After the general fell, Loretta came to avenge him, but the Carian Royal Horse Rider was no match against my magnificent blade, that I definitely didn't steal from Eleonora. The battle concluded shortly after, and I covered Destined Death, so now, it was only a matter of finding the entrance to the Erdtree. After my productive trip, and with 2 Great Runes under my belt, I decided it was time to return to Leyndell, do a little bit more of tourism, and try to reach the royal sewers from the other side. I stumbled upon the fog gate after a bit, and, to my delight, I was warped to the Three Sisters location. Listen, I am not a happy man because I can now talk to Rani and her gang, my boy Iji and that scumbag called Soluvis. I am happy because this means that I now have access to a ton of places and I can even reach Limgrave if I want to. My quest to become Elden Lord was clearly coming to an end. Or was it? I paid a visit to the Crumbling Manor and I ended up at the Volcano Manor. Huh. There I faced
and Sir Gideon Othmere, the all-knowing,
who was appropriately dressed as a Godskin noble. Our battle didn't last for much and I was free to explore Mount Gelmir and the outskirts of the manor. However, the manor didn't bring me to any interesting places and, in fact, returned me to Liurnia. So after talking again to Rani, I ended up at the Ainsel River and made my way to Noxtella, battling hordes of enemies to keep descending in search of the Earth Tree. I crossed the infamous Lake of Rot, not without dying, of course, and reached the horrible depths in which the Scarlet Rot was originally sealed. I used a coffin that was weirdly placed there to chill for a bit and woke up back in Leyndell, just like in a hangover movie. I decided to return to Ainsel and check an area that I hadn't explored yet, and look at that! It's Renala! And weirdly fitting, must I say. Without being able to run away, she was a complete joke and so she was quickly defeated, but not Great Rune was awarded for such a feat. The next fog gate brought me to a different section of the Volcano Manor, and I stayed there for a while, but once again, I didn't come up with anything useful. I returned to Liurnia and covered the extensive terrain and fought a mighty dragon. I also visited the Alvinorix village and fought Tanith's knight, who fell into the abyss and died miserably. This was also the moment in which I killed Vare, because I hate that son of a. This game is gorgeous. Every frame is a painting, man. I was a little fed up with Liurnia, and so, right at the back of Stormvale Castle, I decided to use the secret path to Limgrave. But I was about to discover that what I thought was going to be endless possibilities wasn't quite like that at all. A fog gate appeared between Liurnia and Limgrave. I sighed. It seems the very first area of the game was going to keep eluding me. Nevertheless, I warped to see what was on the other side, and I found a fearsome fire giant. Me and my girl Trish tried to take him out, but this dude was the tankiest motherfucker I've ever seen. And so I died a lot, quite frankly, before I was able to defeat the colossal fire beast. What a formidable fight. I decided to warp to the next place and keep advancing, when suddenly, just like lightning striking on a tree, my save file collapsed and was corrupted. Surely the backup wasn't from that much ago, right?
10 hours later.
This grinding to return to a similar point where the game crashed almost made this video vanish in thin air. So be grateful, because this shit has been so close to not seeing the light of day, I am honestly astonished we were able to upload it to YouTube. The first thing I did now that things were back in order was to use the warp of this well near the Church of Vows. Do you remember the time long ago when I told you that I wouldn't discover the Dragon Temple for hours, even though it was reachable since the first two? Yeah, it was time, and as you can see, I battled Maliketh without holding back, making him responsible for all my pain and suffering. When the servant of Queen Marika fell, I was rejoiced to find out there were 4 fog gates that I could freely explore, and maybe one of them could even bring me to the Earth Tree. Well, we will have to find out someday later.
2,000 years later.
The first fog gate at the Godskin Du Arena, where we left off things, brought me to the Ainsel River, but there wasn't much else to do there besides grabbing some objects. The second one teleported me to Rykard's Arena, where I recovered the Great Serpent Hunter and fought an Ancestor Spirit. Which is funny, right? As the other one holded Rykard's Great Rune. Anyways, this is the second phase boss, so not only I had to deal with this beast, but I also had to fight Leonine Misbegotten, the Lord of Blasphemy? What a joke! What? No one saw that. Weskis, cut the tape. Cut the tape! After defeating the joke, we got another great rune, and with that, we proceeded to leave. The third fog gate in the Dragon Temple was linked to another fight, Godfrey's. And also in a weird feeling manner, I had to battle Radagon there, the first Elden Lord. It was honestly brutal, as Radagon is immune to bleeding and that is my main thing. With Radagon gone, who was better to replace him than Makar? Exactly. Any other boss. What a little joke you are, Makar. Also, for a strange reason, Radagon's corpse just stayed there, and I thought the image was quite poetic. Also, as you can see in the footage, for some stupid reason I didn't bother to check the other fog gate of the arena and return to the Dragon Temple. This mistake will torment me for the rest of the video. Thank you very much. The fourth and final gate brought me back to Liurnia, so I once again thought I was stuck. Even though I had plenty of options, I didn't realize yet. After a lot of time wandering in the lands between, I used the rolled medallion that I had found earlier and used the lift to reach the god-devouring serpent. And so I decided to become its hunter for the day. Get wrecked, you stupid ass snake! And hey, it gave me 1/2 of the Dex medallion. Cool! After that, I did absolutely useless things while wondering if I was soft-locked. Seriously, I spent up so much time into thinking I was stuck that I just want to scream to past me.
Now you're not stuck, you goddamn moron.
Anyways, after too much time, I realized I actually hadn't checked Godfrey's arena back when I fought Radagon, so obviously I went there. But before I could do that, I also realized I had this item to go visit Mog, and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be nice if this was a random warp too? So I used it thinking that I surely wouldn't forget about coming back to Godfrey's arena, right? Anyways, the seal warped me to the Deeproot Depths. I did the usual and explored for a bit, gathered some items, and used the fog gate leading to Fia and Godwin's corpse just to realize it was a dead end. I later fought a Dragon King soldier and oh, look at that! I wasted 1 hour of my life searching in Leyndell and other places because I already forgot I hadn't checked Godfrey's arena. God, how stupid can I be? After a while, I had an epiphany and it is not what you expect. I remembered there is a coffin in the Deeproots that also serves as a random warp. So I went there, grabbed some legendary items along the way, and...
No! God, please, no!
So I spent another hour searching in Leyndell until it actually proved to be useful, since I hadn't made my way to the Forbidden Lands from there and there surely was a fog gate in there. I was actually right, and for once I made some progress, arriving at the Siofra Aqueduct. I explored the area, talked to Dee's brother, but he wasn't that much interested in conversation, and then I used the fog gate to warp to... the Queen's Bedchamber. This was a huge breakthrough. After the fight against Commander Niall, I had 6. I repeat 6 fog gates at my disposal. So let's do a quick inventory check of what we got ourselves into. First one, Volcano Manor, kind of a dead-end closed loop. Second one, Fia's Champions, battle against Loretta's ghost. I sent her to the afterlife, also kind of a dead-end. Third, Raya Lucaria, dead-end without the shadow of a doubt. 4. Subterranean Shunning-Grounds path to the Three Fingers. I fought Fia's champion there and couldn't keep going because I haven't beaten Morgoth yet. 5. Miquella's Helix Tree. Dead end. 6. Actually led to where it is supposed to lead. 2 new fog gates available. One of them led to the not Ashen version of the same place, so there's 2 new more gates available there, just like a rabbit hole. I visited the back of Mogwin's temple, battled the red wolf in the Helix Tree, and reached a random place of Mount Gelmir. Oh, and I also fought Astel in the Siofra Aqueduct. That was a cool fight, but ultimately it was another dead end. The last fog gate in this rabbit hole of gates and warps, however, brought me to Morgoth's arena, where I fought first face Renala. The concept of this fight is to beat the living shit out of some disabled child, and then beating up her mother, who cannot move and clearly has PTSD. Not cool, Miyazaki. Not cool. That arena led to a dead end, of course, so it wasn't much use at all. After the fight, I discovered the arena led back to the Siofra Aqueduct, and that was indeed a closed loop and a dead end, so I was once again stuck in my imagination. All that effort, all those gates, and no sight of the Earth Tree. I was crushed and exhausted. I remember that the path to the Three Fingers was now open, and the temptation was just too much. I went to the depths of madness, drawn by its enchanting and seducing aura, and became a being with frenzy eyes who had succumbed to the madness of Elden Ring's ultimate randomizer. Right after, maybe enlightened by the frenzy, I realized that I could try to warp from the secret trick that you can pull in Raya Lucaria, where you let an Iron Maiden devour you to get to the Volcano Manor early. There was one problem, however. When I checked the first time, there wasn't an Iron Maiden, as enemies are randomized. But what if that enemy killing me resulted in a warp? I had to try. Oh yes, baby, right on the jackpot, I warped to a dead end.
You can't keep getting away with it!
I was devastated. My efforts were futile. I spent hours searching in Leyndell, the Volcano Manor, Liurnia, and even in Farum, Azula, desperate to find a new fog gate that would bring me to the Earth Tree. I was weak. I let madness root in my heart, and as I clocked in more than 25 hours of playtime, I decided that maybe this was too much for me. Weskis had to start making videos because I was too busy making lists of fog gates and connections and drawing maps and all of that. For what? The video was not going to come out. I had to face the reality of the situation. Who would want to watch this? A sad man walking the same paths over and over again, trying to find an exit to his misery. I stopped the recording and called Weskis, my good loyal friend and editor of this channel, to tell him the tragic news.
Yeah? Who's this?
Yeah, look, the video is not coming out. I'm sorry.
What? Why?
I'm stuck. I've been stuck for hours now. I don't even know if this is beatable.
What? What the hell are you talking about? Have you checked the Dragon Temple?
Of course I've checked the Dragon Temple.
Even from the outside, right?
Hold up, let me call you back real quick. Turns out I had 3 fog gates at my disposal since almost the start of the game that I hadn't thought of yet. Motivation started to flow through my veins and I rushed to Farum Azula, eager to check out the new places where I could go. I reached the Dragon Temple, still surprised of how I haven't seen it before. I was almost biting my nails to see what places I was missing. Maybe I could finally go to Limgrave. I checked the first fog gate and it was a dead end. Of course it was. But fear not. There was 2 more gates to check, so I rushed to the second one. And this time, I arrived at the Godskin duo fight at Castle Sol, which seems appropriate, I must say. I used the Mimic tier, as I felt this should be a 2v2, and quickly defeated the duo. Its fight led me directly to Morgoth, who was hiding in Sir Gideon's arena, prior to the burning of the Earth Tree. I was full of excitement while fighting Morgoth, as I danced with him and crossed blades surrounded by fog gates. Endless possibilities, once again. I defeated Morgoth and went to the first fog gate I could, like a madman in search of the Earth Tree, but I instead ended up at Redmane Castle, where a small warp portal finally brought me to Limgrave. Limgrave! It was insane! I had reached the first area of the game after almost 30 hours of playtime. I rejoiced myself, but not for too long, because as the map had already been completed, I hadn't found the Earth Tree yet, and I kept stumbling upon dead end after dead end. I fought Godfrey in the meantime, and I also explored Nokron, the other Eternal City, while I was at it, but to no avail. The Earth Tree kept eluding me, hidden within the shadows. No matter where I went, no matter what I tried, I kept getting stuck in this nightmare. The last Dragon Temple fog gate warped me to Mogwyn, and with him, I had finally beaten all the main bosses of the game, Bears of Great Runes. I explored the Weeping Peninsula, I investigated every nook and cranny of Limgrave, and I suffered the horrors of Caelid, but I still didn't get an answer. As each plan that I thought of got more convoluted, I completed Fia's questline in order to enter her dream. There I fought Horalu, chief of the Badlands. But yet again, another dead end. I decided to check on some old places where I had been ages ago, and after some long hours traveling through the lands between, I realized something very, very important. I actually never checked the fog gate from Gottfried's arena. Finally, this stupid ass moron the monkey was going to do something about it. And look at that. The warp brought me directly to Fortisax. Real good fight against the dragon, by the way. I enjoyed it very much. Maybe because it was the very first few drops of progress that I had made in the last couple of hours. After defeating it, which took me some attempts, I warped to the other half of Nokron and I explored there for a bit, amazed to be making quite some progress, and ended up warping to the Grand Library, where one of the Godskin nobles was waiting for me. What a fearsome fight. We clearly had reached the late game stages, and bosses would drain my health like it was a Capri Sun. After several tries, and I mean several tries, I reached the second phase of the boss, which was none other than Placidusax. Quick disclaimer for you guys, I had never fought this boss before. I didn't do it when I first played Elden Ring, so here we were. And he absolutely demolished me. Many times. And so, after a goddamn awful lot of attempts, I finally slayed the dragon just like St. George would, and from his blood the roses of progress began to grow. Oh, and I finally was able to respec. That definitely took a while, didn't it? To my surprise, and after an exhaustive research I did earlier, I discovered there were many gates I hadn't checked at this point. Less than 10 fog gates from the original 118 had yet to be discovered by me. One of those gates was a secret path on the Volcano Manor, which took me to a fight against Margit in the Noxtella grounds. Late game Margit was no joke, and I suffered battling the Fell Omen, but I managed to come out on top at the end. I saw a fog gate in the throne of Noxtella, and I decided to continue, without knowing that there, in the depths of the Eternal City, I would finally discover Leyndell, the capital. Wait, hold up. This section of Leyndell is new, I thought. So maybe I would find another fog gate after all. I walked through the hallways of the Erdtree capital until I reached its entrance, this time from the back, and, to my surprise, after warping from there, I saw burnt thorns and a golden mist. I celebrated as I finally had reached the Erdtree. Only one battle separated me from victory. Who would I face? Who would dare to be my final rival after so many hours? It couldn't be Radagon, nor Malenia, not even the Elden Beast. The answer was obvious. It had been obvious throughout all this journey. The greatest enemy I ever had in Elden Ring's ultimate randomizer was myself. And what an incredible fight that was going to be. We wielded our Eleanor blades covered in blood, hurting each other in what maybe was a fight that only happened in my mind, rotten by the witching flame of frenzy. However, all these hours of search, exploration, made my will strong as an iron wall, and so I was full of determination to end things. After I made peace with my inner self, I discovered the true final boss awaiting me, an Elden fire giant, hidden inside the sacred Erdtree. The battle was glorious, and with my renovated spirits and myself as an ally once more, I reached the shattered Elden Ring. But something was wrong. A malicious burn in my head, growing and becoming ever so more painful, made me faint in front of the remains of Queen Marika. I woke up covered in the frenzy flame, as this randomizer had also affected my inner self. And soon, the frenzy started devouring everything in the lands between, consuming it in order to give birth to another randomized land, in which innocent Tarnished would try to find the Elden Ring, and thus face the same fate and the same horrors that I had to. Thank you so much for reaching the end of this series. I cannot stress enough how this has been a tremendous effort to produce, and so by watching it, you have made it worthy all the way. I would now ask you to subscribe and all that stuff, but I will use that time to say this instead. What a beautiful piece of art Elden Ring is. This has been an incredible journey. Until we meet again, you tarnished.